Hey, friends. We got a full episode today on the 1978 Yankees-Red Sox American League East Tiebreaker game, better known as the Bucky Dent game. So no first pitch or, mercifully, bad jokes. Those will come later. So let's jump right in. Hello and welcome to Fungos and Fastballs, the podcast of baseball history and trivia. I'm your host, Jerry Dines. Let's jump into today's episode. Welcome, listener. Jerry here, joined by my producer and Greek chorus stand-in, Brooke, but she's Mikeless today, as we have a return of a very special guest, my friend and uber Red Sox fan, Mike Walsh. Mike, thanks for coming back again today.
Thank you for having me back.
This is your second visit here to the podcast, which means in a troubled world, harmony can be achieved as Yanks and Red Sox fans can hang out together. What do you think, Mike? Has the animosity between Sox and Yanks fans chilled out over the years?
I guess maybe a little bit. You don't hear it as much maybe all year long, but I mean, it's still there bubbling under the surface. And last year, when they finally got back into the playoffs against each other again, it was pretty heated.
It seems a little chummier than it used to be. Certainly, probably not in the heat of game time, but I don't know. It seems like lately we have to combine to face our common enemy, the Blue Jays.
Correct.
This week's episode uses the Wayback Machine to travel back to October 1978 to one of the greatest games of all time. Don't take my word for it. So back in 2011, the MLB Network did a nice series with Bob Costas and Tom Verducci called MLB's 20 Greatest Games. This one came at number 11. And from time to time, our podcasts are going to return to some of those games and more. So this episode came about because I was watching that MLB TV, MLB Network series, which they air almost incessantly in the offseason. And number 11 comes up, the 1978 American League East Tiebreaker game. And so I'm texting Mike, again, Red Sox fan, and he replies back, I was at that game. I was stunned, and so I knew we had to have him back to hear this story. So Mike, first, tell us about the lead up to the game. How'd you get in? Did you have tickets?
Well, as many know, the Red Sox tied on the last day of the season. So there's a whole thing where the Yankees were 14 games behind early in the season. They came back, blew past the Red Sox, Boston Massacre 4-game series in September, and they actually went up by, I think, 3.5 games at one point with maybe 2 weeks to go in the season. And then it was a race to the wire, and the Red Sox were a game behind. The Yankees kept winning. The Red Sox kept winning. And to the last day when the Yankees finally lost and the Red Sox won it ended up in a tie. So in talking with my college buddies immediately after the game ended, two others besides myself made plans. One of them had to work at a Wendy's till midnight on the Cape. So we went and picked him up, probably got to Fenway around 2 a.m. No tickets to be had. They'd already sold out. So I'm really not sure.
So what time was this? 2 a.m.?
2 a.m.
Yeah, because the game was afternoon.
Right. So I'm not sure what we did from 2 to 7. I know we didn't sleep, so I guess everybody was just talking about the excitement of what's going to happen, but we still wanted to stay and see if we could find some tickets. And somewhere probably 8, 9 in the morning, we came across a gentleman who had some tickets to sell. He was afraid of getting arrested for scalping. He made us walk with him like 3 blocks into, I don't know if it was a fast food restaurant or a bar or whatever, into the back, into the bathroom, where he finally pulled out the tickets and we bought them. I think we paid maybe $30 each for center field bleacher tickets, which was, back in '78, that was a lot of money.
It sounds very sketchy, Mike.
I know.
I'm glad. How old were you at the time?
I would have been 22.
22.
At the time. Yeah. So
you're right. I mean, nowadays these tickets would be hundreds and hundreds of dollars. You got them for $30,
right?
Which back in '78, that's a decent amount for a baseball game.
A lot of money for me.
Yeah,
but but it really is one of those games you really just couldn't miss if you could get in to go see it. So,
I mean, as Mike pointed out, I mean, let's go back in time here in 1978. A little different from today. Major League Baseball had 26 teams. The American League at that time had 14, and the National League had 12. The American League's divided into East and West. Kansas City Royals had handily won the American League West for the third season in a row, and they're waiting to see who their opponent is. And as Mike pointed out, the Red Sox led the division most of the series. The Yankees were third behind the Sox and Brewers, and then with some injuries, dipped down to fourth. And then on July 19th, it was a mess. The Yankees were 14 games back. Reggie Jackson was suspended indefinitely, quote, unquote, eventually reduced to 5 days for defying manager Billy Martin's instructions to bunt, and Reggie was not going to bunt. And then soon after that, reading the tea leaves that his job was probably not too long, Billy Martin resigned, and a more even-headed manager, Bob Lemon, finished the season. What do you remember about the Boston team that season?
I remember that they had improved their pitching staff. As a Yankee fan, you will remember that the year before the Yankees had won the World Series.
I do.
And the winning pitcher in two of those games was Mike Torrez. And the Red Sox picked up Mike Torrez in the offseason, free agency. And we also picked up Dennis Eckersley in a trade with Cleveland. So we had Torrez, Eckersley, and Tiant, and Bill Lee as kind of the starting four.
Spaceman.
And just, I mean, the year before we had this incredible lineup, and they were all back the next year. In 77, you'll probably remember Baltimore, New York, and Boston came down to the last weekend of the season, and Boston was playing Baltimore, and they kind of knocked each other out, and then the Yankees won the division. So, and Boston had the same team. I mean, they had a monster lineup. They started out with this new pitching staff just blowing through everybody and had a huge lead. The Yankees, like you said, maybe third, maybe fourth at one time. And then, I don't have any sympathy for the Yankees. So, now since it happened, I realize they had a lot of injuries in the beginning of the season. Well, to a certain extent, the injury bug hit the Red Sox in the second half of the season, but not as bad as the Yankees had. So there was a little of that, but I don't know, no excuses. I mean, and it's not like they had a losing record the second half of the season. They were still over 500, but not as many games as they were early in the season. And the Yankees went on 50-25, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. Everyone views that, and it was not a Sox crash by any standards. The Sox were 38-35 from mid-July onwards. So they were playing winning baseball, but you're right, the Yankees were playing over 700 baseball, 52-21 in the last 73 games. You had mentioned they went into Boston and had a 4-game sweep, since known as the Boston Massacre.
15-3, 13-2, 7-0, 7-4. I'll never forget it.
Not that you're holding grudges or keeping track. And you mentioned the pitching, but of course you had Carl Yastrzemski, Yaz, and you had the 78, who would be the 78 American League MVP with Jim Rice there. So on paper, one would say, maybe the Sox were the better team.
No excuses, because all said and done, when they played head-to-head, when it mattered most, the Yanks won 6 out of 7, and I guess 7 out of 8 if you count the the playoff game. So.
Oh, hey, no spoilers here. Granted, it's 50 years ago. Because of this amazing final stretch, with 8 games left, the Yankees are up in the division by 1 game, but Boston wins their last 8 games of the season. And so the Yanks had to win on game 162, which they did not. They lost to Cleveland.
Rick Waite.
Indeed. I'm constantly amazed that to this day, that with 162 games a season, how often playoff spots come down to the last game or two.
Yeah.
But then, so what happens? You have a tie, and we need AL East division winner, so we got to play a tiebreaker. And who decides who's home? A coin flip. and Boston wins the coin flip. So for all that wonderful playing with the Yankees at the tail end, they're the visiting team. The Yankees lose the coin flip, have to travel up to Boston. A classic quote by owner George Steinbrenner. He was very annoyed with the team president for losing the coin flip. The team president called heads, and Steinbrenner's quotes was, "Heads, you imbecile. How in the hell could you call heads when any dummy knows tails comes up 70% of the time?" So that encapsulates George Steinbrenner there. But the game was packed with talent. There were 5 future Hall of Famers in that game. The Sox had 3, right? Yaz, Jim Rice, and Carlton Fisk. And the Yankees had 2 future Hall of Famers, Reggie Jackson and closer Gossage. But they had a strong team too. On the Yankee side, you had Ron Guidry, the Louisiana Lightning, starting. In addition to Reggie, you had Thurman Munson, my favorite player as a kid. And just to set the scene here, Mike and I are sitting across from each other. He's got his Red Sox sweatshirt on. I've got my number 15 Munson jersey on, so it seemed appropriate. But Greg Nettles, great third baseman, speedster Mickey Rivers, and batting ninth, shortstop Bucky Dent, who I think we'll get to later.
Yeah, and the Red Sox, in addition to the people that you mentioned, I mean, you had Rick Burleson at shortstop, Jerry Rummy at second, Butch Hobson was the third baseman most of the year. In this game, I think he was the DH because he had an injury.
He was.
Yeah, and Dwight Evans actually was on that team, and he was actually injured. He had gotten beaned in late August and was out, and they put him back on the roster late, but he didn't play much, and he did pinch hit in the game.
Though I was young, it sounds like Mike and I are 2 sides of the same coin here, even though I was quite young at the time. I think we can both name the respective lineups of our favorite teams at that time. Steinbrenner, back to Steinbrenner, an interesting thing is a year before they had the AL Cy Young winner, Sparky Lyle, as the closer. And not satisfied with that, George Steinbrenner went out and acquired Goose Gossage from the Pirates as the closer this season. So here you have Sparky as the closer. He gets bumped now for Gossage, which prompted the famous quote from third baseman Greg Nettles to Sparky saying, "You went in one season from Cy Young to sayonara."
Sparky Lyle, who was a Red Sox originally, who they traded to the Yankees for Danny Cater. I forget what year that was. And Danny Cater didn't end up being what they thought he was going to be in a trade for Sparky Lyle. So
you're seeing moments like this, a little of that Sox-Yankees rivalry, bitterness. Why fans remember. So let's get to the game itself. Game starts out a little slow. Scoreless first. Yankees are scoreless in the top of the second. And then who comes up in the second, Mike, to homer?
My favorite player of all time, Carl Yastrzemski, laid into one, fastball from Guidry, and smoked it.
Yeah, what's amazing is, Ron Guidry was great against left-handers. I think it was only his second homer all year to a left-handed hitter. And then nothing happens until the 6th inning. Yankees are scoreless. So your pitching did great job there, Torrez. But then in the bottom of the 6th, the Sox get a little insurance run there.
Yeah, I believe. I can't remember who was on base, but I know Jim Rice had the hit that drove in the second run.
Yeah, Rick Burleson was on third, and then Rice gets the single to drive him in. And then Torrez holds the Yankees through that first 6 innings to 2 hits. And then we get to the top of the 7th. Mike, you were there. Do you remember any of that?
Yeah, I remember it. I want to say there was an out, and there were maybe a walk and a hit or a couple of hits, and a second out. And, of course, Bucky Dent comes up, and you kind of breathe a sigh of relief now. You got 2 out. All you got to do is get Bucky Dent out, who's...
Yeah, Dent hadn't hit a home run since mid-August.
Yeah, the worst he's going to do is get a single, and it'll be 2-1. You're not expecting anything more than that.
Yeah, they got Chris Chambliss, the first baseman, gets a single. Roy White gets a single, just a long-standing Yankee at that time. And Brian Doyle, who is filling in for an injured Willie Randolph at second, Bob Lemon decides to pinch hit Jim Spencer for it. The strange thing about this is, if Billy Martin was still the manager, apparently Billy used to love pinch hitting in a situation like this for Bucky Dent. So Martin would have probably kept Doyle in, pinch hit for Dent. But Lemon turned it around, and then Bucky Dent comes up, again, not a home run hitter, hadn't hit a home run since mid-August, and actually dealt with blood clots in his leg in spring training and wound up fouling the ball off his foot with this long delay, 2-minute delay, at which point they notice he's got a crack under the tape in his bat, and they have to switch the bat out. I don't know if you remember at the time, Torrez doesn't take any practice pitches during this delay. He didn't think the delay would be this long, and so he doesn't take any pitches. And Mike, you want to take it from here?
Well, the only thing that, to this day, whenever you listen to Bill White calling the play, there's like nobody more surprised than him. He announces it as a pop-up almost, or as a routine fly ball. And then all of a sudden he goes, "It's a home run! It's in the net!"
Oh,
and I guess that most of us were like that too. It's like, Yaz. Was Yaz on the left? Yeah, Yaz was on the left. And, Yaz just, it's going to fall into his glove, and then it fell into the net. It was like a high pop-up almost, a fly ball, and you're waiting for it to come down into Yaz's glove, and it just caught the net.
Yeah, I heard Lou Piniella said, really, they thought it was going to come off the wall.
Yeah.
And you can even see video of just Yaz slouching down, when it went over there. And, he brings 3 runs home. And then they get a 4th one when Mickey Rivers, after stealing second, Thurman Munson drives him home. And then all of a sudden, now the Yankees are up 4-2 after a really unexpected and surprising home run by Bucky Dent over the Green Monster. We had Mike on in episode 2 talking about the Green Monster. I don't recall you mentioning that as one of your favorite Green Monster moments.
No, probably would be down the list a bit, I would think. The other thing is, I was talking about Yastrzemski and looking up. You knew a lot of times at Fenway, you knew when it was a home run by looking at Yaz, because and the pitchers used to get very upset with Yaz about this, because if he knew it was a home run when they hit it, he wouldn't even turn around to look. He'd just stay in his position looking forward, like, nice going pitch. He just gave up another home run,
We get to the 8th. Reggie Jackson, famous for his home runs, Mr. October there. He hits a home run. Again, gives a little insurance to the Yanks. They're up 5-2 now. Very important run, as it turns out. So we get to the bottom of the 8th, and the Sox start getting some things going.
Yeah, that was one of the more exciting times of the game. I mean, the crowd really got into it. And I will say that, just to go back, I would just say this about Reggie. The fans, of course, are brutal in right field on Reggie,
Right.
And he took it all very good-naturedly. And, of course, after he hit that home run, he came out and bowed to the fans when he got out there. So, but, yeah. So the Sox generated a 2-run rally in the bottom of the 8th. Yaz drove in another, and maybe Fisk. Did Fisk drive in?
Fred Lynn drove in. Fred Lynn brought in Yaz.
Yeah. So, the crowd's going crazy. 5-4.
5-4, it's still a game.
Yeah.
But you see that importance of that Reggie home run then.
Right, exactly, yeah. But a lot of people speak a lot about Bucky Dent, rightly so, but that was the eventual winning run was Reggie's homer.
We get to the 9th inning. Yanks are held scoreless. I'm trying to remember who came in for Torrez. You remember?
Torrez. Initially, Stanley came in. I think Stanley gave up the double to Thurman, and then at some point they had got a lefty named Andy Hassler who pitched some of the game. I think he did okay, and I think Dick Drago came in to pitch the top of the 9th and did a good job. Yeah. So held the fort to the bottom of the 9th.
Held it to 5-4, and again, this is the last chance for the Sox. Burleson gets on first, and then Jerry Remy comes up. And he hits a liner to Lou Piniella out in right field. And at the time, I don't think you had press over the press boxes were lower or something like that. And so you had the sun Because remember, this is an afternoon game.
Right. This is probably, at that time, it's probably close to 5, maybe.
Yeah. And so Lou Piniella in right field said, hey, for pop-ups, no problem. But for line drives, the sun is coming right at you. You couldn't see them.
And the ball was hit right at him.
And it was hit right at him, and he really couldn't see it. And you remember what happened?
Well, I just, I've watched the replay so many times now over the years, and I've even listened to him talk about it, and it was just like I saw something kind of a little bit to my left, like at the last second, and he just reached out his glove and stabbed it, and by doing so, kept Burleson at second instead of going to third. You just think so many things in baseball. What coulda, woulda. I mean, if he had just if he just deflected it a little and maybe picked it up, but Burleson got to third, or even worse, it could have got behind him and could have been a disaster. But by holding Burleson at second base was huge, because the next batter, Jim Rice, hit a long fly ball to right field, which if Burleson had been on third would have scored. But in this situation, he just went from second to third. So then we've got 2 out and runners on first and third.
Yeah, Piniella couldn't see the ball. I don't know, divine intervention. Maybe God's a Yankee fan. I don't know. I'm not one to judge. But he stays at second. You're very right. Rice gets up, only moves him over to third, I think.
Right.
And then, of course, last up, Carl Yastrzemski.
Which, at that time, as all of us longtime Red Sox fans are going, well, this was made to be. Yaz is one of the greatest clutch hitters of all time, right? Yaz is gonna, he's gonna hit one in the gap, and we're gonna score 2 runs and have a walk-off, unbelievable celebration. And I'm pretty sure he swung at the first pitch,
which would have also made this game still one of the greatest games of all time if it had gone the other way. And Yaz had, at this point, Goose Gossage is in as the closer. Yaz had good numbers against Gossage, and one couldn't help but think, well, what's Bob Lemon thinking? He's got Sparky Lyle, the last year's Cy Young winner on the bench. Bring him in from the bullpen. He was warming up in the bullpen too. So Yaz pops up, foul ball. Third baseman Greg Nettles, who we mentioned before, catches it in the final. Yankees 5-4. Sox actually had more hits in that game, 11-8. And so the Red Sox went home, and the Yankees went on to beat the Royals in the championship series, and then faced the Dodgers in the 1978 World Series and won that as well. And shortstop Bucky Dent, who had hit only 4 home runs that season, was forever branded by Boston fans.
He was. And the story, you'll hear all these kind of stories, but the story was that when the season ended, and Don Zimmer, who was the manager of the Red Sox at that time, drove back down to his home in Florida, he would stop every 100 miles, pull over to the side of the road, and go, "Fucking Bucky Dent." and that has become a phrase for all Red Sox fans. He is no longer Bucky Dent after that game. He has a more unique name for Boston fans.
Yes, to be podcast friendly, Bucky Bleepin' Dent. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Again, I want to thank Mike for chatting about his Sox and even revisiting maybe not the best memory for him. Of course, probably the 4 21st century World Series wins that the Sox have had since then make the memories maybe a little more palatable.
It is. It's amazing that 86 years. I was 48 years old when they finally won it. Now they won it 4 times. So,
well, maybe we'll have you come back, Mike, for the 2003 Aaron Boone game.
Gee, thanks.
And well, thank you for listening. Thanks especially to Bill, my accountant, who assured me he'd be listening today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you'll keep listening. And don't forget to like us and subscribe on your podcast platform. This is Jerry Dines, and Fun Goes in Fastballs.